Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. My name is Kalika and you're going to want to turn your device off and on again after watching this video. New job, the adventure begins. I had a new job with a Western employer that I can't give any details about. I had just moved my family from California to work for this multinational. When I came in to work for them, I was told that the previous person had left 2 years ago. The running of all the equipment I was brought in to administrate is highly complex and specialised. Everything I was brought in to administrate was also mission critical to the enterprise and required 100% uptime. If the enterprise systems I worked on went down, it would cost the corporation about $12.5 million for every 30 minutes of downtime. Wow. So naturally, when the last guy in my position left the company, they just decided to let Windows and VMware systems administrators run it for 2 years. It apparently was way easier than hiring a new guy. As soon as I hit my desk, everything was dumped on me. Requests, complaints, everything. Most of it was from the aforementioned sysadmin who'd been running the systems and networks, so I decided that as quickly as possible I needed to reverse engineer their environment. I started to gather IP addresses and passwords for the equipment I'd be running. The IPs for the equipment I got, passwords were another issue. I tried to get more information from the Windows admins who'd been running the hardware for the last 2 years, but they were either clueless or too busy to be bothered with it. When asking about how they ran the systems and kept them running, they didn't really have much information other than we click here and input what we want. Carl showed us before he left. When I asked about monitoring their equipment, they told me the name of a product they had bought. I was very familiar with. The company had paid tens of thousands of dollars for enterprise monitoring and alert software, but they never got around to configuring it. That's right, some system admin threw it on a server and then decided it was too much work and moved on to other things. I really can't blame them. They were Windows admins tasked to work on a highly specialised equipment that was in no way in their scope or job description. I went to try and start scanning all of the hardware and networks that were just turned over to me. I had an unsecured spreadsheet with IPs but no passwords. So just for giggles, I tried using the default user's ID and passwords from the factory for the hardware and software. Shockingly, most of their equipment still had the default IDs and passwords from the factory for over 3 years. On the plus side, I was able to set up diagnostic tools and was able to begin mapping the network. Each diagnostic scan returned more and more problems in both network configuration and equipment performance. Many people walked by shocked that I was able to get their monitoring software up and running at all. I was dumbfounded that these were enterprise critical systems that were falling apart and just left to run on their own. Luckily, the vendors weren't stupid and had their own hardware call home monitoring set up so they could replace parts and keep the systems up and running, most likely so they wouldn't be blamed for an outage. The customer was trying to integrate mission critical hardware from 3 different OEM manufacturers on the data center floor. They had outdated hardware from each OEM. To make things worse, they had at least 5 different models of hardware from each vendor. I've got major alarm bells flashing in my head, so I ran and found the CIO for this multinational corporation and was able to wiggle some time in their schedule. As I talked to the CIO about their environment and needs for immediate migration before a catastrophic outage occurred, the CIO said, "Great, when can you do that?" That's when the first migraine started. When I brought up passwords, they told me to go and talk to random Windows admin number 1 for them. I said no problem, and ran off on my merry way. So, after tracking down rando admin number 1, I asked how I can get passwords for the systems I couldn't access with the default passwords. He told me that there's a spreadsheet on our IT network share, followed by, "Here, I'll make sure you have access," and then proceeded to set me up. When I asked what the password for the spreadsheet was, I was told, to my horror, it's not password protected. When I got back to my desk, I opened up the file and saw to my horror. The spreadsheet didn't just have my system's password information, but also had the IP address, name and password for every system in the enterprise. Then I saw my second shock. All of the passwords included the CIO's name and profanity. To protect the person and the company, we'll just call the CIO Mike. The passwords included F Mike, Mike can eat me, F Mike in the ass, blow me Mike, eat crap Mike. The entire spreadsheet for my equipment followed this password standard. As I reached the end of my passwords, I saw the next bit of horror. There were tabs at the bottom of the spreadsheet. By the way, this is just a recap of day 1. By this point I'm thinking of walking out the door, but I've just moved my entire family to another state, so I was going to be stuck here for a bit as I started a new job hunt. I can write more about my adventures in Bizarro World if you want, I just wanted to throw this out and see if there's any interest. And there definitely was quite a bit of interest, so here we go to New Job Part 2, The Adventure Continues, now with new and improved PTSD flavour. As everyone is interested in hearing how I got a PTSD and a panic disorder from my employer, I'll continue my Tales from Bizarro World. So, I've got my colourful password list of the ones that weren't set to factory default, and my equipment IP addresses. I'm all ready to start configuring the enterprise monitoring and alert software. Then I look down and fear starts to roll over me. The tabs at the bottom of the sheet were labelled Windows, VMware, TCP/IP router, Fibre Channel router, and even a few AS400 servers. I'm sure they were thrown in just for luck. As I flip through the tabs, I realise it's not just a list of my equipment that they threw together for the Windows guys who were trying to run the equipment before I arrived. It was a master server list with the resolvable names and IPs of all the servers. It also included a list of ports, applications, application versions, and finally, passwords. That's right, every password for every server and every application in the enterprise with root level access. At this point I feel sick. I take a coffee break and walk down to get a McCutcheon bull latte and weep in it before returning to work. Now I've got to figure out if I want to help them out or wipe a multinational corporation off the face of the earth before lunchtime. Next up, staff meeting. I bring up these problems at our weekly senior level staff meeting, and everyone in the meeting seems okay with what I'm telling them. They should be freaking the hell out, but they're not. Everyone is just staring at me like I'm growing horns out of my skull. Their looks were similar to a dog hearing a high-pitched noise. It was kind of a confused head tilt thing, like the dog is aware of something but can't quite figure out the noise they're hearing. In this case, it was me giving a security lecture. The sage CIO just kept nodding like they had a clue what I was saying, but I could see the CIO had absolutely no clue why I was bringing any of this up. Again, the ever-wise CIO asked, "What do you want to do about this?" I told the room, "We need to password protect this file and store it in an encrypted vault, as opposed to the IT drive share that everyone working with a designation IT in their title had access to." I continued saying, "In reality, we need to destroy this file." This brought a chorus of groans from the room, followed by chants of, "How are we going to do our work with a password protected password file?" A few senior level admins asked, "Can't we just print out some of the hard copies for our desks and then destroy the file on the server?" Another helpful suggestion was, what if we separate the application logins from the hardware logins on the share? My brain is spinning by this point. Did he just suggest splitting the master password file into two files and then keeping them both in the same folder with no password protection on either file? Yes, he did. The complaining continued about how we couldn't move or wipe out the server name, password, equipment, application, IP, port, spreadsheet file. The Windows and VM admins groaned. How are we going to get any work done if this file is gone? My thought was to pound my fist on the conference room table and yell, "I don't know, maybe like every other friggin' corporation out there." But I held that voice in my inside angry place and bit my tongue. With the room missing the points so badly, I chose to retreat into a corner for the rest of the meeting, as I had already warned the senior level staff and the CIO of the problem. I had done my due diligence that this would be followed up with a warning email. For the rest of the meeting, I tried not to ruffle any more feathers. I was praying in the meeting that someone else with less ethics doesn't wipe out the company by the end of the day. My brain reverted to thoughts of my paycheck and the stack of bills I had just incurred moving my family to a new state. Then my thoughts shifted to an inspirational quote by Bob and Doug McKenzie, which was, $10 is $10, huh? With that in mind, I held it all in and took notes on what madness was occurring in the rest of the enterprise that I may have to deal with later. Next up for me was reconciling the master hardware list with a visual inspection of the hardware and matching the serial numbers of the devices I was in charge of. That led me to my next problem, data center access. Security hadn't done a full background check on me, so my access card was not given data center level floor access. The fact I could wipe the company from a lounge chair in Tahiti made no difference to physical corporate security. Physical access would not be granted until the background checks had come back. Stymied, I asked who had DC access that could escort me. I was finally able to borrow a level 1 desktop technician to escort me into the DC. I was starting to feel a bit optimistic. I had access to all of my systems, and everything else in the company. I was starting to get performance results back from the equipment, and the CIO seemed impressed with my emphatic discussion style in meetings. So I was actually nurturing a small seed of hope, not for the rest of the corporation, but just my equipment. The first horror was when we entered the data center was the temperature. It was hot. Not like warm, it was hot. I checked the thermostat on the wall and we were running well above 74 degrees. I asked the desktop guy, is it always this hot in here? And he said every time I've been in here it's been this hot. He said that he had been asked to assist in rack mounting some servers. Then he said the heat was a little uncomfortable to work in. Panicking again. Then he threw out this nugget. Be glad it's morning, it gets hotter in the afternoon. I'm full on freaked the hell out at this point. Hotter in the afternoon. I put a reminder on my phone to check that I have in fact placed temperature as a Sev1 alert on my monitoring server. With no other choice, I moved on to why I was there. I had some incredibly old hardware units that quite frankly scared me. These things were ancient and were still in production. Not only were they in production, but every user in the company accessed them multiple if not hundreds of times a day. I was a bit relieved that I had only 2 of them to worry about. When I went to match serial numbers and map network ports, the start of my PTSD began. I counted not 1 or 2, but 8 production boxes that no one knew about. I am full on freaking out now. The desktop support guy actually asked me, "Are you okay? It looks like you're hyperventilating." No, I was not friggin' okay. I start looking for warning lights and call home cables on these things pronto. It's been a while since this happened, but I think I found 3 or 5 failed drives on my initial inspection. There weren't any call home phone cables plugged into the back of the boxes. I took a breath and comforted myself, saying it's okay, they're production Ethernet cables running out the back box that were active, and most likely these were configured for home phone over the production network with a firewall hole for the OEM vendor? Maybe, or something. Tired of architecting the stupidest call home in the history of servers, I decided to just copy the serials. Who am I kidding? I snapped photos of the serials with my cell phone. That's right, I took photos of a DC with my cell phone. But seriously, after reading everything above, do you really think anything was on top of this to stop me? So I stopped the site assessment and returned to my desk to ask the OEM, where the hell are you? I've got failed disks. Where is the friggin' CE and why isn't he here now? So I call the OEM, whose enterprise support lines has you call the consumer products lines and sit in voicemail jail until you hear the right option to press. I didn't know this, and when I dialed I was met with, "Thank you for calling OEM Corp, press 1 for consumer printer support, press 2 for consumer camera support, press 3 for Impreza laptop support, press 4 for conjunctivitis laptop support, until we finally hit, press 8 if your data center is on friggin' fire support." When I got through, I read off the serials and tried to find out why they didn't call home. That's when OEM Corp told me I need to transfer you to sales for your account. I'm saying, what? Sales? What the heck? When my salesperson for OEM Corp came on the line, I was like, "It's so nice to meet our account rep. You should take me and my team out to a very expensive lunch next week." With that out of the way, I hit her with a question. Are my boxes calling home? And if they aren't, why aren't you sending out a CE to see why? I followed this up with, when will the CE be here to fix these drives before a few thousand users lose data? She had me read off the serials off to her, and then she said, Yep, I wondered when someone would call about this. They haven't had a maintenance contract with us for about 3 years. We thought they decommissioned it and was sitting in a closet somewhere. Then she asked, "Are you crying? I think I hear you crying." Poor guy. Okay, so that's all for r/TalesFromTechSupport. I really hope you did enjoy it. As always, if you do want to see more content like this, then please do subscribe. My Twitter, Discord, and Patreon links are in the description, and any support is greatly appreciated. Thank you so much for watching. Bye!